Welcome to Main Street Stories. I'm Dewey Evans, and today I am more excited to talk to our guest than I ever have been. We're in Dallas, Texas, and we're speaking with, well, she was the person who was the host of the very first Main Street Stories. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you. Hi, Dewey.
So you made the transition with us from operating tennis centers to being a media company, and you're not with us anymore. And not because of anything that you did. We just kind of wasn't at a place that we could afford to keep you on. And so you've been off doing some other things in your life. How's your life been over the past better part of a year?
It's been really, really good. I've had a lot of amazing opportunities. I work for Keller Williams, which is awesome. It's a big real estate company, if you don't already know. But I've had a lot of opportunities and learned a lot there. And then I've also started my own mobile spray tanning business.
So spray tans, is that kind of like people put goggles on and they look orange when they're done?
No, we don't use the word orange. That doesn't exist. That color doesn't exist. That's not a word. No, so what it is I have a pop-up tent, and I will come to you, to your house, to your work, wherever you want, and I have a pop-up tent, I set it up, I have a spray gun, I have a fan, I have all the solution that I need, and you can wear eye covers, most people don't, but then I just spray you. Whatever color we decide to go with your skin tone, I spray you kind of whatever color you want, but not orange.
So as you could probably guess, I've never had a spray tan, right? Kind of comes a little more natural to me.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that people look for when getting a good spray tan as opposed to a not so good spray tan?
I think a lot of people look at the solution, what solution you're using. I use 100% vegan solution. And I think they look at your technique. There's no streaking. It's very, very fluid the way I do it. You won't see any lines or tiger stripes. And then I think the drying time, I have two different kinds of solution. One has the 8 to 24 hour development time, and then I have a rapid development solution where you can shower in as little as 1 hour after our session.
Looks like you got a good full-time gig, and you got a side hustle, and you have a significant other and a baby and a very full life to keep you busy.
I do. I'm very busy. I stay busy.
Let's take it back to a time, because we hired you, and I think we didn't know all of your story, and your story is one which unfortunately, not the good ending that you have, but which a lot of people have fallen into, and there's an epidemic going on in this country. Would you share with us a little bit about what life was like a decade ago?
So I am a recovering heroin addict. I will have 4 years clean in February. And I was a heroin addict for 10 years, from 18 until 28. And I wouldn't say I had a good childhood. Nothing extreme happened in my childhood that led me to addiction. I think a lot of what happened with me is just the people that I hung around. I got very caught up in that life and that lifestyle, and tried things that I knew were not okay, because I wasn't raised that way, but it was fun and exciting, and I got caught up in it and took it to an extreme that caused people a lot of pain. My family caused me a lot of pain and harm, and it took me a lot. It took some legal action for me to really grow up and realize what I was doing was not okay, and that I needed to change and grow up and take responsibility for myself and become an adult.
Was there a gateway which led to heroin? Because heroin, and I've done a lot of things that I'm not proud of. Never did heroin. Was that the end of a journey, or was it kind of where you started
I smoked pot a little bit in junior high, high school. Started with that. I don't think, and then I tried cocaine and drinking. I didn't try heroin until I was 17, and with my boyfriend at the time, and one of my friends and her boyfriend.
So were they already involved in it? So it was someone who was already partaking who brought you into it?
Yeah, they were, and we were, yeah, I mean, young, 17, so we didn't really we didn't look at it. I mean, it should have been obviously like a red flag or like a huge, okay, that's going too far, but there was just I didn't have that at that age with what I was doing. I didn't have that mindset. It was like, nothing was too far. I like to take things to an extreme level. So they offered it to us. Well, they lied and said it was cocaine, but when we saw it, it was brown, and so we knew it wasn't it wasn't cocaine, but we did it anyways. And after that, it was just, I mean, off and going. It didn't turn into a full addiction for at least probably a year.
Was there an incident that occurred that this was kind of the final straw, or what?
Yeah, so just the crowd that I was hanging out with, they were either had dropped out of school, were skipping school, doing drugs, breaking into houses, not doing, breaking into cars, just not doing what my parents looked at as what they wanted me to do, which I didn't partake in any of those activities. I was still going to school, but my parents got scared. They were scared for me. They didn't think I was going to graduate high school. They really didn't know what I was going to do. So they decided. I remember I got a tattoo on my back, on my lower back, and my parents found out, and that was like, that's what they tell me, was like, oh my God, she has a tattoo. Like, look who she's hanging out with. What is she doing? We're sending her away. So yeah, they had me escorted from my bedroom at like 5 a.m. They had me escorted to Dahlonega, Georgia, to a behavior modification boarding school.
So behavior modification, I hear those terms used when, for a lot of different reasons. What was the methodology that the school used to try to change your behavior?
It was almost, I would say, like a really small college. Like there was girls' dorms and boys' dorms, and we were just all secluded in the mountains. It was in the Appalachian Mountains. And we would go to school every day, but they would intertwine therapy into school. So we would have our peer groups of about 8 to 10 kids that all got there around the same time. You'd have a peer group, and you do different activities besides going to school, like, therapy, talking about what you were doing and, behavior-wise, if anything happened in your childhood, and kind of try to figure out what led you to making those choices and try to get you back on track. And then if you still acted up there or got in trouble there, you would go to restrictions after school, which was like doing PT, like physical activity, push-ups and stuff, and you'd have
yeah, exercise as punishment.
Yeah.
So you said you've been clean for 4 years. You were older than 21 when you started working with me. So apparently the behavior modification school didn't have the intended benefit.
No, it didn't. And that's one big thing I always tell my parents, well, that place didn't work, because I hated that place. I mean, I made good friends there, but I was a junior, almost senior in high school. Like, you get pulled away from your friends to a state that you've never been to, like, and I didn't even know where it was. I'm like, where's Georgia? How do I get home to Texas? You think your life is over. And so no, I don't think it worked for it worked for them to get me. I graduated high school, which I always say I was going to graduate anyways, but I graduated high school, and so for that part, yes, it worked, but behavior modification wise, no, it didn't work.
Okay, so let's kind of then jump forward 4 or 5 years. So you've gotten out of high school, and you're still hanging out with the same people you were hanging out before you got sent to school? So you came back home and...
I came back home, went to a private alternative school in Richardson for my last semester, graduated in 2005, but I came back home and I started hanging out with the same exact people.
And they hadn't missed a beat.
No. Still doing the same thing, still in the same place. They were still there.
How long would you say was the total time that you were involved heavily into drugs, heroin?
From 18 until 28. I got back from boarding school, and I started hanging out with the same people, and then that's when I started really getting more into it on the weekends, a little bit during the week. But when I graduated high school, I didn't necessarily really want to go to college, but I saw it as a way to kind of get what I want from my parents. Get out of the house and still have them take care of me and still have my car and, be an adult, but not have to pay for anything. So I went to University of North Texas for the first semester of my college year, and I chose that school because it was still close enough where I could go from Denton to Pleasant Grove to where my friends were, and then go to school, which I didn't really make it to class most of the time, but that's, I would go almost every day or every other day, and I was doing heroin and drugs then.
So were you still snorting heroin, or did it ever reach the point that you were using needles?
Yes, not. So the guy in high school, he used needles. He was an IV user, and I tried it a few times with him, but I never just solely did IV use. Majority of the time I was snorting it, and then the last year or two, I was doing IV and snorting. So I was doing both, but most of the time it was just snorting it.
Did you realize what was going on with you at that? And what was your level of awareness of the fact that, because we were, at least at the beginning of the epidemic, of a lot of people dying, right?
No, I didn't. My mom actually, whenever I was probably still 18, maybe I had turned 19 already. I remember coming home and she had the newspaper out, and she left it in the dining room with all the kids in Plano that had overdosed and passed away. And she was like, look, trying to show me, like, look what you're doing. Like, you're not realizing it. And I was like, oh, that's not me, whatever.
It's
like,
that classic denial.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
They didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen to me. Yeah, like I just brushed it off. So I was never fully aware until later on. Like, I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing, but I'm too far into it. I'm going to keep doing it.
Did you ever find yourself in any what you thought were scary situations at the time where you said, wow, this is a little over the top?
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of those moments that were over the top. I've been robbed at gunpoint. I've been in really bad situations, but I just put it with the lifestyle I was living. Like, this is just what happens. And I'm okay, I didn't die, like, I'm okay, I didn't get hurt. And so I just was like, I just brushed it off. And a lot of my feelings and emotions were numbed, obviously, from doing drugs. And I just was really good at compartmentalizing, like, everything in my head, like, just putting it back to the back of my head, like, okay, that happened, but whatever, I'm good, let's go. And so, yeah, there were a lot of over the top moments. And my mom, she would see it. I would call her and tell her stuff, and she's just like blown away. Like, what? Like, are you kidding me? And I'm just like, okay, talk to you tomorrow. Bye. Like nothing. So yeah, there was a lot of those moments.
It was just your everyday existence at that point in time.
Yeah.
So what was the moment?
I got pulled over at a gas station right down the street from here, and I had different drugs on me, and they searched the car and found them, and I got arrested. I bonded myself out, and would have been, you would think that would, make something click in my head, but it didn't. And I got bonded out, left, came back home, moved back out, and then about a year later got in trouble again with drugs again. And so that was like the second time was what did it, and getting in trouble, like, and having it be serious trouble where my parents aren't going to get me out. I don't have any money to get myself out. My friends don't have any money to get me out. So I was, stuck in jail, and the court, the judge ordered me to a 6-month rehab in Wilmer, and I stayed there for 6 months, got out, did a few months in the aftercare program, and thought I was good, thought I could do it. I got bored living here, and I was still keeping in touch with some of the people that I used to hang out with, and eventually I went back down to Pleasant Grove, and I relapsed, and then I got in trouble with the courts and had to go back to the 6-month treatment program. And that's the second time that I went was what changed it. I don't know what happened. I don't know. There was never like a moment that I can pick out, but it was just like, okay, at that time, I was like 20, 28, 29. I was like, I'm too old for this. Like, I'm not, it's like, this is not really the life that I want. I thought it was. I just didn't see any other way. Like, I didn't see any other life for me, which is sad because I didn't grow up that way. Like, my parents provided everything and more of like what we could want, and handed us everything to have like a great future. And that wasn't what I chose. And so
you're not an only child.
No, I have an older sister and a younger brother.
And were you following in your sister's footpaths? Did your brother follow in your footpath?
No, my sister is a corporate lawyer in Dallas. She like partied a little bit, but never like, not like party like like party and then take it. Yeah. And then my brother, he lives in Boston. He was like, they were both really good students. My brother had a little bit of fun, but he was the baby, and I was getting in a ton of trouble. So, I mean, if he was doing something, nobody. It's sad to say, but no, I mean, they didn't really notice because I was, I was going crazy.
Do you think that there were signs that somebody could have picked up on when you were early into it that might have changed the path that you ended up going on?
Looking back on it, my mom, she did. I mean, at the beginning, like the first, like when I was 18 or 19, she caught on really quickly to that I was not just like, I wasn't just smoking pot. Like, she caught on really quickly to like, this girl is doing hardcore drugs, like what she's doing is not okay. And she would tell me, she would confront me. And I went to my parents sent me to inpatient rehab multiple times throughout my early 20s. But I would just go so that I could, move back home. My boyfriend at the time would go to jail, and I'd be like, okay, I need to come back home, and I'd have to go to rehab first. So I just used that as a way to, again, manipulate my parents and be able to move back home because I didn't have anywhere to go. But they didn't, I think between my parents, my dad was more like the tough love, like, we're not going to put up with it. But my mom, she was at the time like a huge enabler, like, we can save her, we can help her, let's just do this. This is the time, this is going to happen this time. She's going to stay clean. She really means it, and, there's me the whole time I knew I didn't mean it, but I just didn't care at that time.
It's got to be pretty hard to talk about it because I know when you started working with us, it wasn't an upfront, nor would we have thought to ask you upfront about it.
It's easier to talk about. It depends on the situation. It can be hard to talk about. The thing that keeps me from talking about it is afraid of being judged, because there is a huge stigma with addiction from the outside like, this person's a horrible person. She was addicted to drugs. She got in trouble with the law. Like, we're not going to trust her. She, especially employment-wise, she can't, she's not going to work here. We're not going to trust her. Look at what she's done. And if you look at my past, I mean, yeah, you have every right to think that. But I don't, if somebody asks me about it, like, if they ask me, have you ever been in trouble? Has this happened? I'll be honest with them. And then once I get to know somebody, like, it eventually comes up, because how can it not? I mean, I'm 32 now, and I'm not where not every 32-year-old, but, a lot of 32-year-olds are in their life. I'm not there yet. I mean, I have a great job, a great family, a beautiful child, a great, partner, but financially and I guess kind of what's socially acceptable, I'm not at that point. And so that obviously has come up, like, okay, you're 32, why, like, why aren't you here instead of here? And so it does come up, and that's, I'll bring it up, I'll say why, and now I'm like, if they want to judge me, they can, that's fine.
From a personal standpoint, I would love to say, had we known, we would have taken the chance, and then we would be the ones that took a chance in this great success story, because you probably weren't that far past, where you knew that there wasn't another relapse around the corner. But the reality is we didn't know that. What kind of risk do you think someone takes in giving someone who was in the position where you were when we hired you? Is that the kind of risk that someone should take? Because I think if we had done it 5 years earlier, then you would have, backslid, and we would have been left holding the bag.
It's hard to say what kind of risk there is with somebody, a recovering addict, or somebody that has been in trouble with the law trying to get employment. It all just depends on where that person is in their life. But I think for employers, when they interview the person, you see that person and get to know them a little bit. I honestly think that employers should for sure give them a chance, because sometimes that's that little bit of hope, just getting a job and having somebody give you a chance is what keeps you going. Because a lot of times, I've been through it and have friends that have been through it where they are, like, it seems hopeless. Like, they're in court, and for probation, you have to be employed. And it is extremely hard to find a job, extremely hard. And the courts tell you, just be upfront, be honest with them. If they ask, tell them, because, you have to, but tell them. But that's what, that wall that's like, oh, nope, okay, never mind. Oh, that's it? Oh, you're an addict, you've been in trouble? No. And so that can push people over the edge back into their addiction or relapse, because they see that it's hopeless, and that, like, okay, nobody's going to take a chance on me. Like, I wouldn't take a chance on me either. Like, screw it. I'm just not going to do it. So the risk is high, but a lot of the time it's worth taking, because you don't know what you're really doing for that person.
Obviously, you knew you needed to do something different. You needed to no longer work in bars and things where you were out late at night and the people were looking to go out after work. So you made a conscious choice. I suspect there's not going to be a lot of people that are in the situation you were in who watch this video. But I also bet there's going to be a lot of people who are family members, parents, siblings, of people who are in that position. What do you hope someone might get out of hearing your story?
Recovery is possible. It's not easy by any means. It is not easy. It's one of the hardest things that I've ever done, and I struggle. It's a choice that I make every day to get up and stay clean. It's a choice I make sometimes every second, every minute, and I just have to consciously make that choice to not go do drugs, to not go back to my old friends, it's just a choice. And I hope that they get hope out of this, that it can be done, and it's not hopeless. It's a journey, but it's definitely worth it. Life is so much better. It's harder. It is harder. I don't want anybody to think it's easier, but it's hard, but it's worth it. It's a fight, and it's one of the the best fights that I've ever gone through, and I love it. So I just hope that they get hope out of it.
Is this something you're going to tell your son about?
Of course, yeah. Me and his dad are both recovering addicts, and I think when the time comes, when the right time opens up, I'll be completely honest. I don't think I don't see why I would hide it from him. It's just something I think that we can kind of, hopefully he'll see it as like a lesson. Like, look, my parents did this and I don't want to do that. And if addiction is something that we have to deal with him, which it could very likely be, then we'll handle it, the best way we think. But yeah, we'll be honest with him.
Are you worried that he's genetically predisposed to have an addictive personality?
Yeah, that worries me. I have a little bit of addiction in my distant family, but his dad's side has addiction in his family also. So yeah, it worries me. I think it worries Brandon more than me, because I always look at, like, I see the glass half full than empty. And so I'm like, okay, we'll see it. We'll catch it. We'll see it. Like, look at it. He's not going to be able to do anything. We'll notice. Like, we'll see it because we've been through it.
Well, he is absolutely adorable. He takes after both of you. He has a dad whose eyes are very expressive, and you look absolutely fabulous. No one would know that this story was in your rearview mirror. And I'm glad that we get to know you at a time when it kind of is in your rearview mirror.
Yeah, it is. And it's, as how I feel now, it's going to stay there. So.
Good. Anything else that you feel like you'd like to share with people?
With the epidemic that's going on with addiction, that I think people need to take a bigger look at it and not kind of brush it off, and help people, especially in the justice system, not just shut the door and throw away the key and lock them up, because addicts can change. And I hope, and I know some people are working on that, but I hope they continue to work on it, because it's something that should be looked at.
I know sometimes in 12-step programs, people have to admit that they are always an alcoholic or always an addict. Do you think that has added to the stigma which exists, where people say this person, they're once an addict, always an addict, they're going to relapse sometime, they're going to steal my jewelry, they're going to rob my cash register? Do you think that adds to the problem that people have accepting people back into society?
Alcoholics and addicts, we haven't given ourselves the best reputation. So we have to earn that trust back. And I think the more people that speak up and say they're in recovery, and the more it's brought to light, and show that recovery can happen, I think that stigma will slowly start to die.
So there was a point 5 years ago when you were deciding to make a change. Did the future look bright? And could you have imagined that it would be like it is today?
Absolutely not. No. No. I would have never pictured my life how it is right now. I would have never pictured, I always figured I would have kids, but I would have never pictured that I would have, the son that I do, the most beautiful, amazing child that I have. I would never thought I would have my own car that I paid for, my own apartment that, we pay for. My parents don't pay for anything. I never would have thought that I would get up every day and go to work and be on time and work hard, and then even, work on the weekends. I would have never thought that I could be a responsible adult and live the life that I live. And do the things that I do, and it's great. I mean, I love it.
What's the future hold?
Everything. I mean, there's everything. I have so much opportunity. I've been given so much opportunity, and I am very, very blessed. And so I think the future, I mean, it's great. There are great things coming, and I wholeheartedly believe that.
If you could rewind the clock a little bit and give a piece of advice to the 17, 19, 21-year-old you, what might that be?
I would tell them to really look at what you're doing, because what you're doing at that time in your life does affect you later on. You don't think it does. You think you're invincible, that the choices you're making then, well, how could they affect me 5, 10 years from now? And they absolutely do. Everything that you do in your life will affect you later on. And so I would just say, take a really hard look. If you are struggling with something, take a really hard look at yourself, and don't be afraid to ask for help or to receive help. Just be open to it.
I'm going to ask you, if somebody has said that to you at that age, what would you have said back to them?
At that age, I mean, obviously I would have been like, okay, I don't need help, but because my parents did tell me, like, that you're not making good choices for your life. But I mean, it's hard to be able to tell a teenager and a young adult to think about their life later on. And that's the struggle that you see in society, is kids, well, I say kids, young adults are making these life-altering decisions, and they don't realize it.
So is that a door that you just need to keep beating on, while you might not want to listen to it and you might push back at some point in time? Hopefully we'll get it to crack open?
Yeah, I would say never stop trying to get that point across, because I think the minute you stop trying to get them to realize that, then they're like, okay, see, I knew it didn't matter.
It's apparent that there are people in homes everywhere that you look at them and you believe they're leading an idealistic life. They have everything just perfect. But that isn't the case. And you don't know. You can see a family and one is doing really well and another child kind of slips and goes off the rails. The worst thing that we can do is to judge those people and shun them and make them feel like there is no hope and there is no one to share their story with. We hope that you'll be a great neighbor, because your neighborhood is full of absolutely spectacular people. And just because something happens in their life where, well, it hurts them more than it's hurting you. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you.
This has been fun.
Thank you.
We'll have to get you back as a guest host on Main Street Stories.
I would love to.
soon.
Yeah.